All right, I'll call the meeting to order. Thank you for joining on such a beautiful Tuesday evening. My name is Michael Ray, and I am the chair of the ANC 1A Zoning, Planning, and Parks Committee. And so we're going to discuss this evening an update on Powell Park, and Christine Miller is going to join us in just a few moments to tell us how that construction is going. And then we'll spend just a little bit talking about vacant and blighted properties. The chairman of the DC the DC Council is having a hearing on, I think, the 25th, where ANC commissioners are invited to send in testimony about the vacant and blighted properties in their neighborhoods and how DCRA has or has not been helping to address them. Generally, we think that there is a problem at DCRA in getting vacant and blighted properties addressed, both in terms of shoring them up when there are failure issues, as well as keeping them on the vacant or blighted tax records, which is one tool that the city uses to try to get property owners to move them from being vacant to being active use. I mean, I know I've got some in 1A09 where they've been vacant the entire time that I've been in the community, let alone been on the commission. So it's been a real thing. I will start out by just mentioning to everyone that may not know that the DC Council did pass the comp plan today. So the recommendations that we made, as we already know, were incorporated, and 1A made some strategic, I would say, changes to the maps along Georgia Avenue and 14th Street. And our council member also made some, I don't want to call them last minute, but certainly during their time with the plan, made some changes sort of along the Georgia Avenue and Howard University stretch that would generally impact us, and then the Mount Zion Church in an effort to help them in their redevelopment efforts to add affordable housing. I think they're back on, is that Newton, Kent? Do you know? Newton, or is
Newton, Oak, somewhere in there.
Yeah, to see what they can do for affordable housing. So very excited to see that move forward. Although I was telling Commissioner Bass before we got on, there's already been a lawsuit filed to try to stop the law from going into effect. So we'll see how the courts deal with that. It should be an interesting case to follow, and I'll keep people abreast if it goes anywhere. Any questions or thoughts on any of that? Okay. Well, we're still waiting for Christine. As I said, she's going to pop in when she's able to get free from a meeting that she's also in. But Stan, I noted that you sent an email about vacant and blighted properties. Do you just want to tell folks what you've noticed or what issues you've been having?
Sure. So I live next to the old firehouse on Park Road, which has been vacant, I think, since the 80s. And it as I wrote to you, it comes with all the issues you would expect. There's poor maintenance. There's illegal dumping. There's a separate vacant lot behind my house and that of two of my neighbors that is owned by the city, but not by the fire department or whoever owns the old firehouse. And so those two lots are connected. The other vacant lot you can only access through the alley. There's a gate there. The most recent development is that the gate has been locked by someone, and so the parks guys who are supposed to maintain the land behind our houses can't access because the gate is locked. So that's been, it's been going for 2 months. Normally they mow the vegetation there a couple times a year after we ask them. I don't know. It's just like that land, no one is ever going to use the land behind our houses. I think there's no obvious use, and they should just have us maintain it, honestly. The around the firehouse is a little more problematic because that's obviously a separate property. There's a homeless guy who occasionally camps there, like that kind of stuff. There's ambulances that sit there idling all day.
Yeah, I saw one pull in today. One of the AMC ambulances pulled in. So
yeah. So they use it as a parking lot. They're loud and they always have their engines on. It's red, so there's like a whole litany of things that happen that shouldn't happen.
We've had, there is interest, I know Commissioner Bass is aware of this, there is interest in trying to use that firehouse as a kitchen / education space for fire fighters. I'd be curious. I don't know if that's gone anywhere. There
I
is
don't think so. I've emailed with the firefighter who was trying to set this up.
Yeah.
But it doesn't seem like it's moving quickly.
well, and I think it's added concern would be that that's a residential zone, and so what he wants to do is going to require a
It's
use
not
variance no
residential.
matter what. Yeah. So not that I'm, it doesn't sound like it's not a bad idea, but obviously they need to.
Yeah, I mean, they should just make it housing, to be honest. I don't know why.
Yes, they could, and I'm sure there are many people that would like to see it just be housing.
Yeah.
If it's not needed by the fire department.
Well, and it's just, so there's two separate issues, right? One is I don't think there's an obvious process for turning a vacant government property into housing, right? Because I don't think anyone could buy, right?
You have to dispose. There's a disposal process that the city first has to say we don't need it.
And
then
this is
they
like
go through
this one is a monument too, I think, of some kind. And I don't know, but then the maintenance side, I just think, I mean, they don't do anything in principle. So
Okay. And have you had any direct interaction with DCRA on it?
I've had interactions with Moises, who's the mayor's liaison, and his predecessor.
Okay.
And so then, when they start trying to, get maintenance going or take care of stuff, usually it happens eventually, but the agencies always first, point fingers at each other. Every year it's the same cycle. And then eventually after 3 months, they mow the land, the vegetation behind our house. For illegal dumping and things like that, through 311, that gets done pretty quickly. That I actually have no concerns about. Obviously, it's it's a recurring. I don't know. So many of those resources go to picking stuff up there too, just because the land is empty, right? If there were activity there, people wouldn't dump their old couches and their mattresses and that kind of stuff there, right? So I think it does, right? And it creates a drag on all these different city services in a way that should be avoidable. But I don't know how many of these properties exist, right? City-owned vacant properties. I mean, but there must be a ton across the whole city.
Yes, there probably are. I'm promoting up a few people who I see had joined. But we'll get to you in a little bit, Mr. Boyle. But welcome.
What's up, guys?
Hey there. Jason, you also had a property that you wanted to put on. What were the addresses? I'll get it out of your email, but you can.
Yeah, thanks. I need to look it up again, but they're right near each other, right behind NCB Estates. There's apparently a lot right next to it that is the biggest problem, that the city doesn't own it. Yet at the same time, I can't get an answer out of them who actually owns it. It's supposed to be part of a redevelopment that the mayor announced to build more affordable housing. But at the same time, Inez told me that it wasn't owned by NCBA at the moment. Like, well, if it's going to be an access area to that new building, then who owns it? And the chief of staff for DCRA was like, well, it's owned by them. And she was like, it's not. So I don't know. So the property right behind NCB Estates, and then the other side of the two buildings there's another, I guess, a house used to be. This has been vacant for a long time since it burned down many, many years ago. And looking at the records for it, they've had, different liens on it for different inaction of cleaning it up and stuff. And it's just been empty forever. And I don't know why we're not using these spaces. And the grass gets really high. The one property behind NCB Estates, the rats have gotten into it so much that they dug out all the dirt onto the sidewalk. So they came by and mowed it, but they didn't scoop the dirt back into the property, and it's fenced off, it's chained, right? So you can't actually do much with it. So I don't know, there's a lot of problems on that one block, and it's just too bad that they won't make use of that space or maintain it. Like as Stan said, just clean it, just have a schedule to come by and mow it once in a while would be great. And the neighbors wouldn't complain about the rats or complain about the tall grass.
Yeah, and it wouldn't be a 2-month process that involves multiple agencies and like 5 guys stopping by and saying, no, that's not our responsibility.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
Very good. Mr. Boyle, since you've joined us, I can only imagine which vacant property you want to talk about, but.
Yeah, 3400 Sherman Ave, my fave. And that one is a little weird because we know the owner. She did come and have the Tivic all put back on it.
Mm-hmm.
And if it was sort of somewhat maintained, or even if they put a fence around their backyard so the backyard didn't become a dumping ground, that would be better. Michael, I don't know if you saw on the last round of me complaining about dumping back there. I think they went and gave such enormous fines that no one is putting any garbage there now. The garbage cans are all virtually empty and have been for a week and a half, which is totally not how it worked before. But what I had pointed out to the DCRA guy or whoever, I'm not even sure exactly who, was that they were taking the garbage cans that belonged to that building were all the way around the corner in this vacant lot. And I said, I know that's illegal. And I think that's probably what triggered something, because they, you know, they have to have their own garbage pickup. But
Yeah.
I'm a little squirrely about, I don't know what your plans are with this stuff. I do not want to nail this woman. I don't think she's in great position financially.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's been 3 or 4 years now.
Yeah, do you know when was the last time there was any actual active, well, I guess they replaced the tieback recently, but
That's right.
before that was,
Before that, at least 2 years.
yeah. Yeah, I don't, whether or not we include that particular property in this report, you know, because the chairman is mostly looking to understand where DCRA is failing to, you know, put pressure on contractors to finish properties or to get them back into active use. We know in this particular case, the issue is she's run out of money, right?
We don't know that. It's a very weird, and I've known her for a long time, and she was always like responsible, normal person. Something's obviously up. I don't know if it's a lack of money. I know she's not rich though. Let me put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, because the property, that particular structure went up very quickly. I thought there were going to be a record rebuild, and then it just kind of stopped.
Yeah.
But you know, I'm happy to keep. Well, we should make sure that Mukta is aware as well. But you know, happy to keep working to keep it clean. I think that a lot of the trash issue stems from 1000 Park. I think that's where you've noticed most of the address.
It's actually 3408 Sherman is the actual address.
No. I mean the trash that you're finding back there.
Yeah, that's actually 3408 Sherman. It's the corner. It's the corner building.
I didn't know that. I thought
1000 Park is the guy who used to run Normal, the very first big Victorian.
Yeah.
That's 1000.
Okay, but they're
Corner unit's 3408.
leaving their trash there. That's not the trash.
Yep.
You're fine.
Yep.
Okay. Good to know. Anyway, feel free to stick around if you want. But
Sure.
We're just going to talk about properties. So I did get a number of emails talking about 3413 14th Street, 3613 10th Street, 1431 Monroe Street, and I can't remember the number. There's a property on Warder Street that I would include. Then Kent, you had mentioned that what is the property that where you were talking about the shoring up?
Yeah, 632 Rock Creek Church Road. The owner, I believe, lives in Ward 4. It's been on DCRA's radar for a while, but nothing's happening. My concern is that it's not structurally stable. In fact, I think it was 3 years ago, maybe 4, I'd alerted DCRA that it needed to be repointed and that I'd noticed some movement. DCR came out, they looked at it. They pretty much said, yeah, we did an inspection, it's cool. And in the middle of the night, 2 days later, the 3rd floor fell off all over the sidewalk in the yard. And DCRA's response to that was they just removed all of the original building material, probably in a landfill somewhere, rather than stack it up nice and neat. And so it's gone. And I've noticed over the last couple of years, particularly in the last few months, that there seems to be some movement with the remaining facade. And my question has simply been, why can't DCRA just get some, you know, you often see this with construction sites where you get like 2x6s and put them across the front of the facade and then some boards from the ground up to help stabilize the property, right? Like, but I don't want it torn down. I don't think it's anyone's best interest to tear it down, but it needs to be stabilized. And I've seen DCRA, like back when Melinda Bowling was director, I could pretty reasonably reach out to her and say, hey, there's a problem with this. Like in one case, it's like the back of like the sleeping porch is on this house. And Bill, you might know this property because it was around the corner on Park Road. The neighbors were screaming at DCRA for a long time because the back of the vacant house was falling off. and it was a safety issue. And all I simply said to Melinda was, I know you think you're doing the property owner a favor by not touching it, but if the heirs ever get control of it, they're going to have to remove the back of it anyway, because it's not safe anymore. And she says, well, yeah, that makes sense. And so DCRA took it away. They added the cost to the tax assessment and called it a day. But again, it's not like it cost the owners any money that they wouldn't have had to spend in the future anyway. So I don't know why. It's just been like pulling teeth to get DCRA to do perhaps the lowest cost remediation to keep the property at least stable until someone can take care of it. I don't know how they're doing the property owner any favors by allowing it to go into further disrepair and in all likelihood have further facade falling off the front, which is a public safety issue in and of itself. Not to mention, if it's uncontrolled, it will damage the row houses that are connected to it, and those neighbors don't deserve that either. So I'm just flummoxed that the best they've been able to do thus far is report it to, I guess, Vacant and Blighted Property Division for a hearing to make, I don't know what decision they think they're going to make. It's a pretty simple solution of what they need to do.
I mean, I think one of and Christine, we'll go to you in just a second, but one of the dilemmas is that, we get properties placed on the vacant list or even on the blighted list, and then with very minimal change, they come right back off again. And it does seem that DCRA, will, I don't want to say bend over backwards, but looks for a way to get them back off the list. I just don't understand that mentality of it, because it's not like they're adding a lot of tax revenue. You'd add more tax revenue if you left them on the list. All right, well, we're going to take a quick break. Christine Miller has joined us, and she has an update on Powell Park for us.
Yes, and I do want to just jump in on the blighted. I mean, I've been dealing with 3228 Hyatt Place for 6 years now? How many? They've gone on and off the vacant, blighted. They've been permanent. It was a struggle to get them permanently blighted. They now owe $500,000 in fees. So the question is, at what point does the city say, all right, you owe us $1 million. We're going to actually foreclose on you or collect. And I mean, that particular owner has shown zero intention of developing and continues. So at some point, the city, and I've had many conversations with the Office of the Attorney General, and just if this hasn't been brought up in the conversation, getting a property condemned is incredibly difficult. So
and we, because of COVID, we have not done tax sales for the last 2 years. So even in cases where you are on the list to be sold under a tax sale, those have not been happening. So
it is very, at least from my side experience, I've never tried to buy a tax sale property. It is not that easy to buy it. I mean, they go on, they go off. I mean, Doug Jamal he's on the tax sale list for dozens of properties every year. It's that, it's that long-standing Egyptian money. They just coasts it through. They just
William, did you have a point?
Oh yeah, I was just going to say that I've kind of dealt with the tax lien sales. It's 1 year's tax lien sale is pretty normal, but trying to buy one, if anyone's bought a tax lien in a year before you got to buy all the liens up to them, and then you have to negotiate with them to buy them out. And so if a property's, some idiot 10 years ago, 12 years ago, bought a couple years worth on a property, they are supposed to earn, I believe it's 8% interest all the way compounding after that. And so if these properties have that much money on them, and trust me, I know of a few that, I have my eye on, they're not going.
Well, and I can tell you again with 3228 Hyatt Place, which everybody's got their eye on, they have, there are court cases. It's not just, I mean,
Right.
it's the district, but then you've got a line ahead of the district waiting to collect. I mean,
Hmm.
it's, the number of people that have said, why can't we just take the property? And I said, I mean, Russia has a lead on that, I'm pretty sure they've got, some good ideas on how we could do it, but we in the district have decided that we're not going to just confiscate property, and that's where we are with some of these vacant blighted. So I think the issue is to maintain the blighted status and not maintain so much burden on the city to constantly reinitiate that. But I thank you, Michael, for letting me jump in. I know this is such a good conversation. I'm sad I can't stay, but I'm in the middle of another meeting. But I wanted to give folks an update on the Powell Park, which Kent, you will be very excited. We had a conversation about the signage, and it will be officially named Powell Park, and that will be on the signage. I know it looks like it's so close, but they are in the process of finalizing the lighting. There are issues with water. I don't know if folks remember, there was a giant sinkhole in the middle of the plaza area that WASA needed to repair. I'm actually trying to get them to replace the entire plaza area that's under their purview. But that's separate from DPR property. But the park itself is very, very close. They've got, they've developed multiple ADA entrances, which is amazing. I don't know if anybody's walked by. The sides look scarily steep.
Oh, sorry, slides. The slides when I walk by look really, really like so
Yes.
tall. Like, oh my gosh.
They're terrifying. As somebody
They
who
look
grew up
terrifying.
in the 80s, they have closures now. So I think they'll be okay. No, in fact, I had somebody say, I think they're, above the height requirement. They're fine.
What surface are they using? Is it?
It will be mulch.
Oh, good.
But a processed mulch, no trees
A wood product.
died in the process of making this mulch. And it's not tires.
Yes, that's the important part.
That's the important part. So yes, it will be a I don't know, a mulch, just mulch.
Very good.
But yeah, it's very ADA compliant, which for anybody who had been in that park before, it was not. So we have multiple points of entrance, and ADA compliance, of course, is universal access as well. So our seniors who have mobility issues will be better able to access the park. Another thing that I know has come up in previous conversations is securing the playground area. And I do want to just address this. I realize we're a small audience, but one of the challenges with that space is that it is a public park. And we really work to strike a balance between maintaining a public space, but also creating a more secure area for kids that sort of delineates the space of ages and universal. So there will be fencing around the playground equipment, but the plaza area, the multi-age equipment, all of that's still going to be publicly accessible. It's going to be in line with trolley park. So we'll have rangers who will come by, who will unlock the playground area at dawn, dusk. But most of it will be publicly accessible. I also want to say one of the things that I really pushed for, I don't know if folks knew this, but there was a dead zone between the DPR property and the church that was formerly an alleyway. And I had asked to have that converted into some sort of urban agricultural opportunity. And that's something that they were able to do. Unfortunately, with the funding, all they could do is create water access and fencing, which are the two big challenges when you create an urban agricultural space. So the next step will be, how do we utilize that? And that's something that once we get the playground area open, playground park open, we will be looking at ways to utilize that urban agricultural area, which we're hoping to create community farming opportunities. So,
Very good.
yes.
Any questions from the folks on the call?
I'm
Since-
very excited to have it open. I just wish it was adult playground equipment too. I'm kidding.
It is adult
looking forward to it.
Jason Clock, I want you to know I worked very hard to put in adult equipment for you.
Well, we'll go and look. Okay, thank you,
I
Christine. It looks
expect
beautiful.
And it is open after dark if you want to sneak in.
Woohoo. All right, thank you.
And I
Put up the climb
expect
the
to see you working out and using it.
Yes.
I did not to change the subject too much, but its neighbor is oh shoot, now I've already forgotten the name. In the DPR, former DPR headquarters, who's moving into that again, Christine?
Geez, you're asking me something I haven't thought about in 3 months.
Um,
It
It's the
is
economics school, right?
Is that junior achievement?
it's junior. It is
Junior
junior.
achievement.
Junior.
Junior
Thank you.
achievement. And I bring it up only because I saw, at least I'm
Thank
hoping
you,
now,
Ken.
because I think so now I've forgotten the names, but I did see that the Checkers Club that got, that was
For Shaw. Oh,
Move them into a junior achievement space, as I understand.
no, that's higher achievement.
Higher achievement. Okay, sorry.
Yes. But I do want to note one of the things, and again, I wish we had more people in this meeting because I really want to applaud DPR for really taking in community, feedback. And one of the things I sent DPR was a picture of some of our residents playing checkers on the ground. We now have a checkerboard built into one of the tables. It's a standing, which is also ADA compliant. So you could, Michael,
Very
take a
good.
wheelchair up there.
And you can play chess too.
I love
Double
it.
duty.
You can play chess, checkers, not backgammon. I apologize. I couldn't do that much.
Okay.
But there is a built-in checkerboard on the table. So, they really tried to make this as multi-age friendly and user and useful as possible.
Sounds good. All right, then I'm gonna move us back.
Ask a couple tough questions because otherwise.
Well, my question, real quick question, because I know the naming of things is very thorough right now.
Yes.
Did they tell you who the Powell was that was not a conflict?
So that was, again, I asked that very question. I had sent them your historic review and all the work that you did. And when they asked me, what do people call the park? I said, I don't think we can name it that. I said, I don't think you can put that on a billboard. I said, but I shared with them, Kent, your research, but they had also done their research in advance. And I had brought up that same question. I said, I haven't done the level of investigation that you had done Kent, I said, are we sure Powell is not gonna come back? I don't know the history.
Yeah.
But I do know what you've provided, and then they said they had done equal research, and yeah.
Very well.
I'm not saying
Okay.
it's perfect. I don't know. Maybe there's something we didn't catch.
Well, thank you
Yeah.
for the update. I'm gonna move us back on vacant and blighted because I do have a question. I'm gonna bring up and share my
Okay. I
screen.
apologize. I gotta go.
No problem. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Mike.
And perhaps this is really more for Commissioner Base, but looking at, if you can see the screen, this sort of sunken property here in the middle, this is,
It's not sunken.
well, I know, it appears it's sunken. 1020 Lamont Street.
Yeah.
I believe you were involved many years ago when this property first kind of popped on our radar. Do you know anything more about it? Because I was thinking this might be something we should include.
No, I honestly don't know anything about it. Yeah, I remember when the building to the right of the photograph was exactly the same as that. So
There were two of them. Oh, I forgot about that.
yeah, they were both, and that's why you see that the windows align. Those properties are older than anything else on the block, and they're not sunken. The street was raised so that the grade would be appropriate for the street.
Interesting.
But yeah, that probably dates to the 1880s or 1890s.
Okay. Well, I'll at least double check because I recall there being at various points a long time vacant on this, and I don't know that it's in active use today, but I'll double check.
Well, you know, Michael, there are a couple of things here. You know, a property that's vacant, taxed as vacant, but kept in good repair, I don't know if that's a big problem for us. It may be like inefficiency or administrative problem for the city, but as far as community impact, it's not a big problem. I think the bigger problems are the blighted properties that aren't well maintained and where the tax is not being paid, because those properties quickly get upside down. And eventually when they decide to let it go, or the city finally decides to do something to try to get it to move forward, no one can afford to pay more taxes than the property's worth just to have the opportunity to develop it, put it into productive use, and get rid of the blight. So, I mean, I don't know how we want to approach this with the council, but you know, there's the small set of properties where the system seems to be working, even if it's slow, and then there's everything else that's dragging us down.
Yeah, you're right. Good one. I'm going to share again because this property on 14th Street, is it sharing? Can you see the?
We can see it.
Yeah, I mean this commercial property on 14th Street has been like this, and I mean this one is certainly, you know, and I know what happens is they'll put in permits to say they're going to put in a new floor, a new this or a new that, and they, you know, it comes right back off the list again. I mean, there's no way that this building just needs, you know, a little here, a little there. This is you're probably going to end up having to knock it down in order to move it forward. This one, Commissioner Teresa Edmondson had worked on when she was on the commission and is no longer, but I think that's probably one that I would hope you think meets your criteria of, it's, you know, while it's not in good repair, it's not in good repair, and I can go along with that.
Well, and
Michael,
I think too, oh, I'm sorry. I'll say this real quick. One thing we should be considering too is, are any of these properties in disrepair enough that they're creating harborage for rats and other vermin?
Yes, I
Right,
think
like, because that's legal too.
yeah, I would say that this one certainly has a rodent issue, as something that Stan was pointing out too. But I'll make sure that one gets on our report.
I'm sorry, Michael, the one near that, I think it's the old funeral home, vacant funeral home, is that being used?
I think they finished it finally.
Because the one next to it looks like was the old building. It always looked like
you know, I was thinking about that old funeral home as we were walking by it the other day, and I don't recall seeing like what had become of it, but I think they're back in use.
Okay.
So any others that kind of, I mean, that's a pretty good list. I mean, I think I'm also probably going to kind of going back to something Christine said about when when the bill gets so high, 723 Morton Street, which I know Commissioner Bass is very familiar with. The tax bill on that now, just it's a vacant lot, is $500,000 or $600,000. So, at what point too does the amount of money that is owed is actually becoming more of a hindrance than it is to, a help? Or can the city put in a legislative trigger, which would then automatically make it the city's property after a certain amount of time? I don't know the legalities of that. I mean, because as Mr. Boyle was saying, there could be former tax liens that other people have already bought, but there's got to be a way out of this.
Well, what I would like to recommend too is the city needs to have a mechanism, which it doesn't currently have, where when a property unfortunately gets to the point where the city needs to step in and aggressively change the ownership for the public good. And I know that they're very hesitant to do that. But when that is the right path, there needs to be a mechanism for some tax forgiveness to get the property to a reasonable price for somebody to get title to it, right? Like the increased tax rate is supposed to encourage the property owner to bring their property into good repair so that they can stop paying the tax. Some people don't care. Some people don't have the money for the regular tax, let alone the increased tax. And ultimately, if they lose the property, that tax burden should not be somebody else's because they aren't responsible for the condition. They're the ones trying to bring it back into compliance. This has happened at other properties like 632 Manor Place, which is now thankfully renovated, but that was like 9 years of back and forth with the city taxing the property at a vacant and blighted rate, which was appropriate, but the owner was deceased and had been deceased for years. And all the city could do is keep adding more and more taxes on it. And nobody could afford to. I mean, I think ultimately they did do something to bring it down, but based on those conversations I had with the city at the time, like the Office of Tax and Revenue has no mechanism to write down taxes.
I think we encountered that a little bit with the new market on Georgia Avenue, which had gotten hit with vacant during its redevelopment into a market. And so ultimately, I think the market took another 9 to 12 months to open because they had to figure out the back taxes issue, which was much higher than they anticipated. So, while I do think that there needs to be a mechanism to tax higher, it doesn't always result in something becoming active again. It can actually cause it to be just as long or not more vacant. So
well, as long as we're talking about vacant property and loopholes, do we want to broach the surface parking lot at Georgia and Park Road?
I have reported that many, many times, but I have been told, unfortunately, that because it's owned by the same people that own the Small Smiles or what Adventure Dental, that they're allowed to use it as an accessory use, even though it's not technically adjacent to the property. There's a property between the chicken. Oh, I've got to make sure that the chicken place gets in the list too. It's not Eat More Chicken, but it was another one. But
Michael, my point is, I know that they found a way to get it off, but I don't really see that is being used as off-street parking for the dental place, is it?
It's not.
Well, there are cars there. I don't know whose cars they are, but there are cars there.
Yeah, but the cars don't come in the morning when the office opens and leave at night when the office closes.
That's a good point. With the office being closed, I should go by there and snap a shot, like, you know, when the doors are down, if there are cars in there, because then maybe it's being used just like it was prior when it was a used car place and it was just full of cars that weren't being sold. But Billy, did you have any insight on its actual use? But you were willing to share on a recorded session?
No, oh, in that case, no, not at all. Yeah. All good.
You can tell me later. But I agree. I don't like, you know, they have also submitted permits that should be used. They were going to do it into housing, and it never went anywhere because it was done only to keep it from being considered vacant. And that's when they got the idea to make it accessory parking, and I tried to stop that, and it didn't go anywhere. I mean, this brings up a lot of complicated issues. There's no one fix here that the chairman, I don't know if he wants to hear that, but that's kind of what I'm getting. Well, we're 43 minutes in. I don't particularly have anything else that we need to talk about. It is a beautiful day, so I'm happy to let everybody kind of go. What I propose that we do then is that I'll come up with a draft that kind of, you know, brings in all of these issues and maybe gives a little bit of some background, or if I've got a little history that I can get from the record on whether or not DCRA had them on the list or didn't have them on the list. And we can submit that. And then that way, at least, if the chairman chooses to follow up, or his office chooses to follow up with anything else, that they can, you know, they can reference the list. But I don't want to spend too much time. I don't entirely understand how he wants to use it. If it's to create a separate vacant property list that he's going to use, you know, with DCRA, or if it's just to point out all the ways DCRA is not addressing community concerns. It's not clear to me what the outcome of this hearing might be. But no one has any objection to that. All right, we won't have time to vote on it, so I'm not, you know, I may distribute it to everyone on the commission and then let them co-sign on by a certain date or something like that, just so they can show that the ANC did consider it. It doesn't, I don't think this is something that has to have great weight per se. We're just trying to give a report. And maybe I'll make it from the committee or something like that.
Well, whether it has great weight or not, I think that's moot. The chairman's office reached out to commissioners asking for input, so I think they'll listen to it.
Okay, that's what we'll do. Very well. And with that, I'll call the meeting to an end and hopefully see you all live and in person in the neighborhood in the coming weeks.
Mask free.
Michael.
Thank you.
Looking forward to it. Thanks.
Good night, everyone.
Yeah.